My parents disowned me for marrying a poor carpenter, but years later they were surprised to see him. Ethan's face turned expressionless, and Claire's eyes filled with tears. "You're throwing away everything we've worked for," Ethan said, his voice laced with disbelief. "Don't you see the impact this will have?" I shook my head and, lowering my voice, responded firmly. I do see the impact, Dad, but I have to live my own life, not the one you've planned for me. Liam makes me happy in a way I've never felt before. I can't ignore that." Claire's tears fell freely as her voice trembled. "We only want what's best for you. We thought we were guiding you toward a successful and fulfilling life." I looked at them, my heart breaking. "I understand, but your vision of what's best for me isn't the same as what I need for myself. I love you both, but I have to follow my own path." The conversation ended in a heavy silence. My parents, deeply hurt and disappointed, struggled to understand my decision. It was clear they weren't ready to accept my choice. Welcome to the Soulful Stories channel. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell. Hi, I'm Ellie Carter, and I want to share a story that has defined my life in recent years. It's a story about family expectations, personal rebellion, and finding my own path, one that challenges the boundaries imposed on me. I'm 22 years old, but I feel like I've been fighting against my family's expectations for as long as I can remember. Growing up, my twin sister Amy and I were always compared to each other, and it seemed like she was always the one who came out on top. She effortlessly excelled in her business administration studies, easily fitting the mold of the perfect daughter. Meanwhile, I constantly felt like I was struggling to keep up, unable to meet the standards that were set for both of us. Our parents, Dr. Ethan Carter and Claire Carter, were the epitome of high expectations. My father, a respected university professor, was known for his stern demeanor and relentless dedication to his academic career. He held himself and his family to a set of rigid standards, expecting nothing less than excellence. My mother, on the other hand, embodied the traditional homemaker ideal, pouring her energy into maintaining the family's pristine image. She believed that image was everything, especially for her daughters. They had a clear vision for what they wanted for Amy and me, but it never quite aligned with who I truly was. From a young age, I felt like I didn't fit into that vision. It was as if I was constantly being observed, scrutinized under the weight of their expectations. My father constantly praised Amy for her academic achievements, seeing her as a reflection of his success, while my mother insisted that I follow her example, be the perfect daughter, and adhere to traditional values. To them, success meant excelling academically, securing a prestigious job, and marrying someone they deemed suitable. For years, I tried to fit into that mold. I dressed the way they wanted, followed their rules, and did my best to be the daughter they desired. But deep down, something inside me kept urging me to break free, to pursue my own life on my own terms. I didn't want to be defined solely by my family's achievements, nor did I want to live my life in Amy's shadow. I wanted to make choices that reflected who I truly was, not what would please them. It wasn't about rejecting their love or guidance, but about finding a way to carve out my own identity, one that wasn't dictated by their plans for me. My small acts of rebellion were my way of expressing that struggle. Instead of wearing the conventional clothes they preferred, I started experimenting with bold eyeliner and more unconventional outfits. To them, these changes were met with disapproval, but to me, they symbolized a step toward discovering my own identity, one shaped by my own desires and aspirations. It wasn't easy. The pressure to conform was overwhelming at times, but each small act of defiance gave me the courage to take another step toward becoming the person I wanted to be, not the person they wanted me to be. Now, as I reflect on these past few years, I realize it wasn't just about rebellion. It was about finding the strength to live authentically, even if it meant disappointing the people I loved. In a way, that struggle has shaped who I am today, someone who is determined to live life on her own terms, not defined by the expectations of others. And for the first time, I feel like I'm finally discovering the path that's truly mine. The turning point in my life came when I met Liam. I was in the university library struggling with an assignment when he walked in. Liam was a carpenter in his 30s, completely unlike anyone I had ever met. He had a way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary and saw the world with a sense of freedom and possibility. When he talked about his work and life, it was clear he lived on his own terms, unbound by social expectations or the rigid plans my parents had for me. We started talking more, and before long, I realized how much I enjoyed being around him. With Liam, I felt free to be myself, no pretenses, no fears. One night, while we were sitting at a cozy cafe near campus, Liam took my hand and looked into my eyes. "Ellie," he said softly, "I know this might sound crazy, but I see a future for us, a future where we're both free to be who we truly are." A wave of emotions washed over me. It was the first time someone had spoken to me about a future that wasn't shaped by someone else's expectations. Liam wasn't just proposing marriage, he was offering me a chance at a different life, a chance to break free from the mold that had been created for me and forge a new path together. When Liam proposed, I knew my parents would never approve. They had always envisioned me with someone who fit their idea of success, a person who met their social and academic standards. But Liam was everything they disapproved of. He had lived a life of spontaneity and freedom, far removed from the academic and social circles my parents valued so highly. Despite knowing the challenges ahead, I said yes. For the first time, I was choosing to live for myself. It was a huge step, one that would eventually lead to some of the hardest decisions of my life. When the time came to introduce Liam to my parents, I was filled with anxiety. My heart raced as I led him into the house, desperately hoping they could see how happy he made me. But deep down, I feared their reaction. Ethan was in his study, surrounded by piles of books and papers, barely glancing up as we entered, his focus entirely on his work. Claire was in the kitchen, preparing dinner with precise movements, her expression distant and lost in thought. "Ellie, there you are," Claire said as we walked in. Her eyes shifted to Liam, narrowing slightly. "And who's this?" I took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad, this is Liam. He's a carpenter, and he's very important to me." Ethan finally looked up from his papers, his gaze critical. Liam, ever charismatic, smiled warmly. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice steady and genuine. "Tell us about yourself," Ethan said, his tone polite but distant. Liam's smile never wavered. "I'm a carpenter, as Ellie mentioned. I love what I do, and I've always believed in living life my own way. I know it might seem unconventional, but I think it's important to stay true to yourself." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line, and Ethan's expression grew even more critical. It was clear they weren't impressed. Dinner was tense and awkward. I tried to steer the conversation toward lighter topics, but every attempt was met with cold indifference. Ethan watched Liam closely, as if searching for flaws, while Claire seemed to rehearse a disapproving speech in her head. After dinner, I knew the confrontation I had been dreading was imminent. As we were saying goodbye, Ethan cleared his throat. "Ellie, could you come with me to the study for a moment?" My stomach churned as I followed him, with Liam trailing behind me. Once inside, Ethan closed the door, his expression as stern as ever. "Ellie," he began, "I need to be honest with you. We've always had certain expectations for you and Amy. It's important for the reputation and future of our family." I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. "I understand, Dad, but Liam makes me happy. Doesn't that mean something?" Ethan's face grew even sterner. "This isn't just about happiness, Ellie. It's about making decisions that align with the family's values and the future we've envisioned. Liam, though he may be a good person, doesn't fit that image." Claire nodded, her eyes fixed on me. "We've been very clear about what we expect from you. If you choose to be with Liam, you must understand that it means going against everything we've worked for and what we believe is best for you." Liam's concerned gaze met mine. "Ellie, what are they saying?" Ethan took a deep breath before delivering his ultimatum. "You have a choice, Ellie. Either you stay with us and follow the path we've laid out for you, which includes ending this relationship, or you choose Liam and leave this family behind. It's a difficult decision, but it's yours to make." Ethan's words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had always known this moment might come, but facing it was entirely different. My heart pounded as I tried to process the ultimatum. Liam's hand found mine, offering comfort and solidarity. "Whatever you choose, I'll support you," he said softly. "But I hope you choose what truly makes you happy." The sincerity in his words and his unwavering support left me in turmoil. I had spent my whole life trying to meet my parents' expectations, but now I was being asked to choose between my happiness and their approval. It was a choice no one should have to make, but it was my reality. As I left the study, I knew the decision ahead was monumental. It wasn't just about choosing between Liam and my parents. It was about my future and what I truly wanted for my life. The tension and uncertainty were suffocating, and the path forward felt both daunting and exhilarating. The following days were filled with sleepless nights and endless contemplation. I knew this decision would define the rest of my life. Whatever I chose would come with its own set of challenges and sacrifices. But for the first time, I felt a spark of hope and determination to live a life true to myself. The days after the ultimatum were some of the hardest of my life. Every conversation with my parents felt like a battle, every word exchanged laden with unspoken tension. I knew choosing Liam meant walking away from the only life I had ever known. But the more I thought about it, the clearer my path became. Liam and I spent long hours discussing our future, everything from the small details of daily life to our dreams and fears. His unwavering support made me feel less alone in such a tumultuous time. He was my rock, the person who made me feel like I was finally living for myself instead of trying to meet everyone else's expectations. One night, as we sat together in the cozy living room of the small apartment Liam had rented, he took my hands in his. "Ellie, I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm here for you. I know this isn't easy, but I believe in us." His words were a balm for my troubled heart. "I just don't know how to tell them," I admitted, my voice cracking. "I know it'll hurt them, but I can't keep living under their shadow." Liam gently squeezed my hands. "It's not about hurting them. It's about choosing your happiness. You deserve to live a life that feels right to you." The decision was made. I couldn't live a life defined by my parents' expectations anymore. I was ready to embrace a future with Liam, even if it meant leaving my family behind. That weekend, I made the difficult decision to have one last conversation with my parents. I wanted to face them directly, so they could see my determination and hear my reasons for choosing Liam. My heart pounded as I entered the family home, my stomach in knots. Mom and Dad were seated in the living room, their expressions a mix of concern and anticipation. I took a deep breath and began. "I've made my decision. I'm choosing Liam. I can't keep living a life that isn't true to who I am." Ethan's face hardened, and Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Ellie, you're throwing away everything we've worked for," Ethan said, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Don't you see the impact this will have?" I shook my head and responded firmly, my voice low but resolute. "I see the impact, Dad, but I have to live my own life, not the one you've planned for me. Liam makes me happy in a way I've never felt before, and I can't ignore that." Claire's tears flowed freely, her voice trembling. "We just want what's best for you. We thought we were guiding you toward a successful and fulfilling life." "I understand," I said, my heart breaking. "But your vision of what's best for me isn't the same as what I need for myself. I love you both, but I have to follow my own path." The conversation ended in a heavy silence. My parents, deeply hurt and disappointed, struggled to comprehend my decision. It was clear they weren't ready to accept my choice. I started working as the coordinator for Liam's business, managing schedules, liaising with clients, and handling finances. It felt good to contribute in my own way, to be part of something we were building together from the ground up. Despite the joy and love that filled our lives, a part of me still felt the absence of my parents. Their silence was a shadow over my happiness, a constant reminder of the price I had paid for my freedom. Every day, I held on to the hope that they would come around, that they would see the life I had built and realize I was happy. But weeks turned into months, and their absence remained a painful void. I convinced myself that perhaps, with time, they would reach out. And then, one unexpected day, they did, but it wasn't in the way I had imagined. My parents reached out to me not out of love or reconciliation, but in a state of desperation. Ethan had been caught up in a scandal at the university, one that tarnished his reputation and left him jobless. Amy and her husband had disowned them, unwilling to be associated with the fallout. With nowhere else to turn, they came to me as their last hope. It hurt to see them standing before me, their faces hollow and weary, seeking refuge from the emotional storm they were in. For a fleeting moment, the child in me wanted to comfort them, to be the dutiful daughter who would fix everything. But the pain and betrayal they had inflicted on me were still fresh in my heart. Memories of their disapproval and the way they had turned their backs on me surfaced like an open wound. I listened to their plea, my heart torn between the past and the present. Their words were filled with regret, but not the kind that sought to mend our relationship. It was regret born of necessity, of desperation. At that moment, I realized that despite their need, I had already made my choice. The life I had built with Liam was a reflection of my happiness and independence. I couldn't go back to the life they had tried to dictate, no matter how much they needed me now. "I'm sorry, but I can't help you," I said firmly, though my voice carried the weight of sorrow. "I've built a new life for myself, and I need to protect it. I can't undo the decisions I've made or go back." Their expressions of shock and pain were the final break in our relationship. It was clear that the ties that once bound us as a family had been irrevocably severed. When I closed the door behind them, a sense of finality washed over me. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with the pain of loss but also the satisfaction of living a life true to myself. With Liam by my side, I knew I had made the right decision and was ready to embrace whatever the future held. Life with Liam was a journey full of ups and downs, but every moment filled me with gratitude for the path we had chosen. We settled into our new home, finding comfort in the cozy space we could finally call our own. It wasn't big or luxurious, but it was filled with laughter, love, and the small details that made it unique, like the bookshelf Liam built in our living room or the herb garden I started by the kitchen window. My role as coordinator in Liam's business kept me busy, and it was rewarding to see our shared efforts bearing fruit. Liam's carpentry skills continued to shine, and his new certification allowed him to earn a salary of approximately $80,000 a year, providing us with a comfortable life. We started dreaming about the future, imagining all the possibilities that lay ahead. One evening, as we sat together on our worn but cozy couch, I looked at Liam and said, "Despite everything, we've created something wonderful together." Liam returned my smile, a spark of pride in his eyes. "I couldn't have done this without you." Our happiness grew even more when we discovered I was pregnant. The news came as a joyful surprise, and we eagerly prepared for the arrival of our baby. Liam threw himself into creating the nursery, crafting every piece of furniture by hand. The crib, the rocking chair, even the shelves, all made with love and care, his way of welcoming the newest member of our family. When our son was born, we named him Silas, a name inspired by Liam's carpentry work and the tools that had built our dreams. Holding Silas for the first time was a profound moment, filled with love and hope. He represented the future we had dreamed of, a new chapter in our lives that brought immense joy. As I looked into Silas's tiny face, I felt a deep sense of peace. Despite the absence of my parents, I had found solace in the life I had chosen. The journey had been challenging, but it had led me to a place where I could truly be myself. One night, as Liam and I stood together in the nursery, he ran his fingers over the wooden crib he had built and said, "This crib is just the beginning. I'm going to build a future for him that he'll be proud of." I nodded, tears in my eyes. "And we'll do it together." The journey ahead would undoubtedly bring challenges, but I was ready to face them, guided by love, hope, and the strength we had built as a family. Together, we would continue to build, one step at a time, knowing that the life we were crafting was more fulfilling than anything we could have ever imagined. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. This is Soulful Stories, where love and justice always prevail.
See you next time.